Hi everybody, Jerlyn Rose here. The Mercury retrograde's over and I'm back. Did you miss me? Now, I'm a waterlogged Piscean Gemini, and the Mercury retrogrades, they've always affected me. Like lack of sleep. It's like a 3-week-long full moon for me. Anyways, I want to thank you all, everybody here, for being patient, because I needed to take some time for my physical and my emotional health, and I worked on some goal adjustments, and I've got so many cards to catch up on. I have so many that I need to send out. I do want to say one thing, though, because of what two people did recently. There is a current world condition normalizing people to spreading hate and anger, especially on social media. People think that gentle souls are easy targets to dump on because they won't fight back. Now, lucky for me, I also have Scorpio in me. I will tell you what I think of the beaver butt balls coming out of your mouth and cut off your forever going forward, unless there is a genuine apology coming from you and a change of behavior. Canucks, we're the sweetest, politest people going until you put a hockey stick in our hands. Why would I let someone steal my crafting time, which also means stealing from everybody else watching? Enough said on that at the moment. So let's get on with what we're doing here and back to card making. As usual, this is for one of the Instagram hops, the tags and techniques one. I didn't opt out of this one because this is the one I love the most. This month, we were doing gel prints. We watched Jennifer McGuire's videos for some reference. I used several of the things that she did, using the gradients, using a stencil, and pulling the ink through that after you had your base layer down. Me being me, you can see that I'm adding some crackle paste on top of the little hearts that I put down on the tag. Now for the tag, when I was drawing the pull, I used release paper from the back of adhesive over top of it because it was a smaller surface. Now for this, the bigger panel, again, I'm doing a gradient, but I'm going to bring in a sheet of scrap paper and I'm going to use that over the top so that, of course, I'm not smearing ink all over my hand. So you bring your brayer on either side of where you're doing your ink so that you don't get the lines in the middle, unless you want the lines in the middle. And then sure, start the brayer right in the middle of the ink, right? But move it back and forth, up and down. It will help to blend it if you want a really smooth gradient. You still kind of want some of the lines in there because it's a gel print and that's what this is for. You can see when I pull the first layer off that they're still in there. Now, the more layers that you add onto it, the more it's going to tend to smooth out if you've got the same color. If you're adding in secondary colors, like I'm doing here on the next panel, they will go, of course, in the blocks or whatever over top. And this one, I did ones with the ink pad at an angle, and I also did them square on. The oxides are good for this because they are square pads. Here is where I'm using another stencil over top of it, and I used a darker ink color so that I would get a little bit more demarcation. I also did a technique where I dragged the ink across the brayer. That's how I got those lines there. Now this panel, because it's an oxide, I did take a heat gun to it and I gently dried it from above with the heat gun and then was able to put it in and ink it up with this stamp. This one also has a stencil set with it. And so I'm bringing in a little bit of the orange and a little bit of brown at the bottom so that I'm getting shadows for that vase so that it does look like it's got some roundness to it. And when I was picking out the spot that I was going to stamp it, I went with where the lighter tones would be for the bulge of the vase. So again, it's adding to that perspective that we got that this vase has actually got some dimension to it. Now for the background panel, which the blue one, which was set aside, I'm bringing in another stencil and I put down some pigment ink, the cloud white first, and then I went and put some picket fence, splattered that over, and I thought that it would come through when I pulled, but my pigment ink needs re-inking. Again, I find the whites are so bad for that. And the picket fence, of course, it's not really opaque anyway. So we're going old school. We're bringing out some of the old paint and we're putting that down. And this one worked. And this is how typically you really do use gel prints, like what the artists do. They are actually using acrylic paints for it, and they are layering it, and then they'll put another top layer on, which becomes your bottom layer when you flip it over and do your final print pull, right? With the cards, we tend to do it layer by layer. You build up on it. So for this one, I'm still going for the background, and I'm using the halftone stencil. I masked off that card at an angle because I'm trying to create the illusion of a table that you're kind of looking at from like sideways. And so I had an old cardstock behind with the, satin tape on the front there so that it wouldn't go over the top part where I got that wallpaper appearance in the background. Now I'm setting that aside to dry, and I'm doing another panel. I figure, okay, I'm going to start the flowers here. Now, this is where I brought in some of the regular inks, and I find I don't like working with the ones that I have because they're round pads, and then you get really weird marks on your pull. Now, that's okay if you're doing round shapes, but I want it square. And so then I brought the oxides in at the end, and I dried it across. I was using the rose peony out of this, and I knew that this stamp image was going to be too big. My original thought was that I was going to cut it down, but right there, I didn't realize that I actually shifted that panel and I double stamped it. And I thought, oh, I can save it. I can save it. I cut it out. But then it was just too big for the vase for sticking out. So I brought out the anemone stamp, which also has a stencil and a die cut for it. And I die cut it first, really carefully set my stamp in over top of it, and then stamped it with the obsidian black. And this obsidian black, as well as like the oxides and pigment, I am heat setting it here because it will smear. I didn't want to put embossing powder on it, which is why I've got the heat gun on it and moving across it really quickly so it does not curl that flower. We've got her to set down. We're bringing all the stencils out. And all I'm doing here is I'm augmenting the lines that we got from the gel print pull in the background with the stencil. So I'm using the stencil very, very lightly on it, just kind of enough to give it a hint of a shadow there with that. And of course, bringing the greens in for the stem and the bud here. Yes. You're probably wondering what I'm doing right now. I'm watching it. Okay, I'm doing the center. I will deepen up that middle part with some darker orange. The pad that I was using was not a dark enough orange, so I grabbed out my secondary orange brush and I brought that in for it. I, of course, have further plans for this. You'll see. And we're doing some old fussy cutting because I only needed that one flower at the top, and I thought, well, I could probably use like that bud. So I did fussy cut it out, and then I'm using my bone folder around the edge to give it just a bit of a rounding, a beveledness, so that it looks like it was die cut as well. And this is one of the vases that does not have a slit in. Some of the others do. I used my X-Acto knife and I cut in 2 slits so that I could put the bud and the flower in. And we're just freehand drawing here. I got out one of the fine liners and we're just going back and forth. Just kind of a scribbly look in the back because we've already got kind of a Mondrian, Picasso, Van Gogh-ish kind of thing happening there. And I thought it would just add to it and give a little bit more demarcation to the edge of the tablecloth that we've got. That was the scripty sentiments for the die cut that we're using. And I needed something bold, so I had like a navy blue and I put just a black shadow behind it. Tranquil greetings for the inside. Had to double stamp the light blue twice because it was so light. Now I'm going to highlight the piece and I'm going to highlight the tranquil. I can never say that word. You can go back in other videos and you can see that I can't say that word. It's like Benedict Cumberbatch trying to say penguins. Penguins, however it is that he does it. But what I'm doing is for those 2 words, I am using a slightly darker blue, wiping off all the other ink around it just so that it gives it a little bit more depth and bringing in a really light blue with just the anemone flower in the one corner. All right, we're setting down the vase and the main flower and the little one that's sticking out to the side. I will glue it down next so it's not hanging off the edge. Oh, I did die cut down that panel too that's in the background. I just ran it through with one of the waffle flower rectangle dies. The one little leaf, we'll just tuck that over top. So you've got like a leaf behind and the bud and a leaf in front. I figured out where the die cut sentiment was going to go. And then I also brought in a little sub sentiment just below it, again with obsidian pigment ink, and off camera. I did heat gun that as well just to dry it. So I'm not going to smear it. Here we're setting down the just a note in place, and the tittle that was on top of the J, I brought those in afterwards. You can see I've got them kept in the tray there so I don't lose them. It's easier to put your shadow layer down first and then add the other ones on top of it rather than trying to put them separately and then put them down at the end. We brought in some crackle accents there, and the part where I had stenciled the vase with the darker ink to give it a bit more depth, the crackle accents are going to dry, and it's going to cause it to look like it's got even more of a little bit of a bulge, kind of like those old vases that we used to get back in the 70s, right? With the really funky colors. And remember, we all had lava lamps at the same time. So we're throwing a few jewel drops around the center of that flower because me being me. And I also put down some solar paste just to highlight the flowers. Did not get a very good picture of that, though. I'm working with a new light box because my old one died. And I'm still trying to figure out the situation. I was picking out what color of sequins, bling bling, shiny, shiny, bling bling, of course, as well on that. And just a little bit of splatter on top of the flower, which is why I masked all the rest off with paper towel, because I thought it just needed a little bit more shiny. All the ink kind of dried back from the gel print, and it didn't have enough like the block lines and stuff in it anymore. So carefully picking that aside. Custom stamp is going on the back. There's the tag that we finished too, now that it's all dry and the crackle paste is across part of those hearts. That's the finished card, everybody. So it's kind of artsy-fartsy from my art history days. Sort of a primaries with the blue and the yellow, and the orange is kind of a secondary of red. I'm going to send that out as part of my Goodwill series. Everybody, you go be that change you want to see in the world. Don't be a douche canoe, eh? And keep your stick on the ice right side up. Thanks, everybody, for watching and liking and subbing, and we'll catch you all next time. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.